Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. So today I have sort of a life lesson of sorts for you. So this is a harp that I just bought, and I actually bought it sight unseen, and it arrived to me yesterday, and I'm going to use this harp to tell you about things that you should look out for when you are purchasing a used harp, because this one has just about all of the flaws that you could imagine in a harp. So let's get to it. So just to give you a little bit of background, yes, this is one of those cheaper Pakistani harps. And it's clearly one of the older models because it has the old version levers rather than the newer levers, which, from what I understand, neither of which are great. But I wanted to kind of try it because I have never actually tried one of these harps, and I thought, you know, I'll give it a try and I'll see what it sounds like. Maybe I'll make a couple sound comparison videos because the price was really good. But as it turned out, the price was really good for a reason, and I am honestly too afraid to tune this harp up to pitch to give you a sound sample, unfortunately. But I am going to use this harp to guide you through some things to look out for when you are buying a used harp, and things that if you see, you should definitely not buy this harp. So the first one I want to show you, and I'm going to kind of throw up some pictures rather than trying to show you on video because it's just a little bit easier for you to see, I think. But the first thing I want to show you is the lean of the column. So this is a really great thing to look at when you are looking at a used harp. So if you face the harp straight on, and you'll see this better in the pictures, you're facing the harp straight on, and you can see that the column, whereas it should be sort of straight, is kind of going like this. It's leaning over. And the reason it does that, this is really interesting, is because these strings have a lot of tension on them. There's just a lot of force pulling down on the neck. And if the neck isn't properly reinforced, as in these Pakistani harps, over time, that tension is going to pull it over to the side. And you're going to have not only a cosmetic issue with your harp going all wonky, but it also creates issues with the strings. There's a lot of buzz that can happen when you have that, and it deregulates your levers, so your levers aren't going to work as well. As well as causing major structural issues, because the second thing you want to watch out for is cracks at the joints, and I'm going to show you those pictures as well. So you can see that right up along here where the neck meets the pillar, the glue there is definitely cracking and coming undone, and that's a structural issue caused by, again, that neck warping and the pull of the strings on that neck. Now, the reason that's really concerning is because as that neck keeps getting pulled over, the pillar is trying to warp with it, but eventually it's going to pull this neck straight off of the pillar, and you're going to have a giant mess on your hands. The other thing you want to look at is cracks over here at the back of the harp, where the neck meets the sound box. I believe this is called the knee block. So right over here, you're going to see that sometimes there's cracks, sometimes there's separation, so you can like see little cracks where the wood should be meeting wood, but it's not anymore. And you can definitely see some shifting. Like I'll show you a picture of right over here. You can see that the wood is no longer where it was glued. And that's just another indication that your neck is warping, and you're going to have some major structural issues down the line. Okay, here's something that can be an issue but might not be an issue. Here's where you'll want to take pictures and get an opinion from a professional luthier, because they can tell you a little better if it's okay. And what I'm going to talk about here is cracks in the soundboard. In some harps, you'll see cracks running up and down. And those are usually just cosmetic cracks in the veneer. If you look in the back of the harp and you see that the cracks are going all the way through, that is a lot more concerning and something to worry about. There can also be, as in this harp, there's some cracks running side to side along the soundboard. And those are going through the veneer as well as the back of the harp. So you can see that they're running all the way through the soundboard. And that is definitely an issue. You probably don't want to purchase a used harp that is looking like that. So here's a fun fact that you might not be aware of about harps. When you have this harmonic curve of the neck, the way that this curves, it kind of works with the string lengths and the pitch of the notes. It just works better scientifically if you have this cool curve right here. But unfortunately, this harmonic curve does make the necks of harps rather weak in this area. Because the grain of the wood running right here, is actually really short. There's not a lot of strength in that wood to hold it together because of this kind of short area right here. So if you look at this area, this is often where you're going to see the first signs of neck stress. And as I'm going to show you in this picture, this harp does not just have signs of neck stress. This harp has clear cracks that run all the way through the wood and have also been repaired. They don't look like they've been repaired super professionally, and there's obviously still some issues in other parts of the harp. So yeah, if you see a crack starting to form, or if you see a crack running all the way through that's been repaired, you're probably not going to want to buy that harp. That means that the wood of the neck right here is so weak that it has already given out, and you're not going to want to have that happen a second time. So I would stay away from harps that have any cracks around this portion of the neck, or any part, but this is the first place to look right here. Another thing that's really good to look for, I think, is signs of fall damage. Sometimes a harp can fall, and the damage to the structure of it won't be readily apparent, but often harps are damaged by falling. That's just how the nature of the wood works. So if you see things like a little dents along the side, I'll show you a picture of those right there. Or here's my favorite on this harp. You can see in this picture some of these tuning pegs. The holes look quite a bit bigger than they were originally. And I believe, I can't say for 100% certain because I don't know what happened to this harp to cause all this damage, but I believe the enlarged tuning peg holes were probably caused by a fall in which the tuning pegs were knocked and kind of enlarged those holes. So if you see damage like that, or if you see scuff marks somewhere like on the top of the harp, or really bad ones right here, then you can probably say, hey, this harp has taken a pretty major fall at some point in its tenure, and you might not want to take that risk. I do want to talk though about one thing that's probably going to put a lot of new harpists off of buying a used harp, but is actually not a big deal at all if the harp is missing strings. So this one in particular is missing a E string, and this F string is really detuned. But by and large, if most of the strings have good tension on them and they're like sort of in tune, a lot of times used harps haven't been used for a while, so they're not going to be super in tune. But if they've had tension on them for a while, then that's a good indicator that the harp is doing well, barring any of the other signs that I've told you to look out for. But if it's just missing a couple of strings, that's something super easy to replace, and something that you're absolutely going to have to learn to do as a harpist anyway. Strings break, it happens, and eventually you're going to need to learn how to replace them, so it's probably not a huge deal if a couple strings are broken. I know it can seem really daunting if you are a new harpist and you've never changed a string before. You probably are like, it'd be so much easier just to get one with all the strings. But if you come across one for a good price and it doesn't have any other issues and there's just a couple missing strings, go for it. Learn how to change strings. It's really not a big deal. One other thing, and this is not something you can necessarily see in the harp. This is something that you have to ask about and just sort of trust that the person you're buying from is being truthful. But one really good thing to ask about is the humidity level of the harp. Is that something that the owner was aware that they should be concerned about? Because harps do best at a humidity level between, I think it's 30 to 50%. Don't quote me on that. There's a lot of articles online that you can look at to see the perfect harp humidity range. But if you ask about it and they don't seem to know like what you're talking about, or they're kind of unsure about it, then it's a really good idea to just pause and think about whether you'd really like to have that harp. Because humidity can cause issues down the line. There might be places where the harp really rapidly dried or expanded, and so there's some cracks there, and you're not able to see them because they're internal structural cracks, and those can become problems later. And you wouldn't think it, but actually both in the winter and in the summer, depending on what kind of climate you live in, obviously, the way that we, at least in America, fairly constantly run either our heating or our air conditioning can really dry out the air in your home. And that can be a major issue for harps. And if somebody is not aware that they should be humidifying and doesn't keep a humidifier running, that's pretty common among people who are not big instrument people. So if they didn't know that and they didn't have that going, then that's something to be a little concerned about. One other suggestion I just want to give you before I head out is you can always contact the maker of the harp. And so what you want to do when you're doing that is you want to be armed with lots of pictures. So ask the seller if you can get lots of pictures or take lots of pictures. And you're going to want to have the serial number of the harp. Because most harp makers, from what I've experienced, keep really good records of the harps that they've made. And then you can go ahead and contact them and ask them, like, when was this harp made? What's it made out of? You can show them pictures if you have any concerns about anything. And the harp maker is going to know that harp best, and they are going to know what's going to be an issue, what's not going to be an issue, what it might cost to get an issue fixed if there is an issue. So definitely utilize that resource, because from what I've experienced, harp makers are usually really interested in hearing about the instruments they've made and where they've ended up. And so they're great resources, so utilize them. So that is all I have for you today. Please learn from my mistakes. It is always a super great idea to see the harp that you are planning on purchasing in person first. I know that's not always possible. I live out in the middle of nowhere too, I get it. But if you can, it's really the best way to purchase a used harp, because otherwise you just never know what you're gonna end up with. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, please do ask me down in the comments below, and I will be happy to get back to you. I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful day. Thank you all so much for watching. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, go ahead and click on that subscription button right up there. Otherwise, if you would like to join my Patreon or buy me a coffee, the links to those are down in the description. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day.